I tried every single one of the touch-enabled games on Xbox Game Pass and on GeForce Now for mobile. That's over 190 games, and it's taken me over 3 months to do this. And here is what I've found. First of all, these games were tested not in how good they are or their implementation of touch support. Secondly, they were tested briefly for their implementation on my Pixel 6. Screen size can affect your experience, and some games might be more or less playable towards the later parts of the game. I've tested the games on several things. Readability of the UI and playability on touch, using a scale of bad, okay, good, and great, as well as a general recommendation from me if it's a game that I would like to play on my phone based on the above. What that means is a game with good ratings might still get a no on the recommendation page, and a game with an okay rating might get a yes. But with that out of the way, let's get into the findings. Out of almost 200 games, only 67 managed to get a recommendation from me. While only a third, it is still plenty of games, and you may find some games without recommendations to be well worth your time, depending on your tastes. In general, having a standard overlay was bad for the scores. Only Telling Lies by Sam Barlow managed to get a recommendation rating. But even then, it was with native text input, and despite getting a yes on recommendation, it only scored okay on both readability and playability. Because the type of game makes a big difference. Direct Touch has the best track record, with only 6 out of the 18 not being recommended, and most of those 6 had quite unique reasons behind it. The first-person games were notoriously bad suited for touch. In fact, only Superliminal, Escape Academy, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Power Wash Simulator manages to actually get a recommend in that category. Now, there's surely way more takeaways from the data to grab, but I'll let you guys discover that for yourselves. Instead, here's the full list of recommended games, their ratings, and my comments. There are in no particular order, but I've added chapters to make it easier to track. So here we go. Wreckfest. It's a good overall experience, slightly suboptimal placement of the steering stick, but in general, it's good. The game uses a custom overlay, the playability rating is good, the readability rating is okay, and it is recommended on the phone, and you can play it using xCloud. As Dusk Falls. Full on touch, as if it was natively on mobile. Just bravo! The style of overlay is direct touch, it has a good playability rating, a good readability rating, and it is recommended on your phone, and you can play it on xCloud. What Remains of Edith Finch. 2 buttons, 2 virtual sticks, and 90% of it is in perfect placement. I'd like the left stick to be slightly lower on the hand, so it doesn't block the light sensor, tricking the phone into thinking it's dark. However, that is customizable, so it gets away with it. It's also a walking simulator, so that might be cheating a little bit, but, you know, it's all the buttons you need. It has a custom overlay, with a good playability rating and a good readability rating, as well as being recommended on phone. Power Wash Simulator. This is a custom overlay that's actually pretty good. It has 3 virtual sticks, 2 on the left, for camera and camera plus spraying water, that are never needed to be used at the same time, and 1 for movement on the right. All the buttons you need are located in a circle around the 2 sticks. It is a bit clunky with the controller in general, so mobile is no difference, but it plays kind of fine. Game has a custom overlay with a OK rating in both playability and readability. Escape Academy. It's a simple control scheme. The custom overlay is quite out of the way of the gameplay, which is good. The move button is a bit too centered by default, but that can be modified on your own. It was also occasionally blocking a few letters or notes, which is annoying, but it was still kind of readable. It was a bit clunky to aim and move around with the touch controller, but it's easily forgivable for this type of game. It's an OK rating in both readability and playability, and uses a custom overlay. Paw Patrol Adventure City Calls. 4 buttons that look small but have a large clickable area. 1 movement stick, and that's it. Perfect to put in the hands of a 3 to 4 year old who loves to show, toys, merch, or whatever, and have them play while you wait for the rest of the party to finish their meals at a restaurant, for example. Great implementation. The game uses a custom overlay and receives a good rating in both playability and readability. My Friend Peppa Pig. This game uses a custom overlay with standard buttons, and the overlay even has 1 button less than the Paw Patrol game we mentioned before. Just brilliant, perfect for kids. The game receives a good recommendation in both playability and readability. Minecraft Dungeons. This game uses a stylized overlay that works surprisingly well. You play through the whole game without much trouble? Yes, you can. Does it play better on console with a controller? Slightly. Just slightly. Game and the custom overlay receives a good playability rating as well as a good readability rating. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Here we find a custom overlay with a transparent D-pad and 6 neatly placed buttons that are quite clear in what they do. Probably not as good as the real deal in later levels, but definitely playable at least early on. Good one. Game receives a good rating in both playability and readability. Monster Train. Since this is a deck builder, the quite basic custom overlay with the D-pad as well as 2 extra buttons for navigation on the left and standard Xbox controller overlays on the right surprisingly works kinda well. I would have preferred a direct touch approach, but it's definitely playable. The game receives a good playability rating and an okay readability rating, but is still recommended. Tinykin. This is a decent custom overlay with a few buttons too many in one place on the right side in my opinion, but for the most part it works quite okay. Gotta say, cute game. The game receives an okay rating in both playability and readability, but is also recommended. 100 Days. This winemaking puzzler/simulation game has direct touch on Google Stadia, which is great on mobile. Unfortunately, the platform is closing down, so I guess you're gonna have to play it locally on your phone. Humankind. Again, this is another Stadia title that had pretty good direct touch integration, but the UI and text could be a bit hard to hit and read accurately on a phone at times. It did play well, but it would have been better on a tablet. Unfortunately, come January, you will not be able to play this on your phone anymore. Disc Room. This game uses a custom overlay with just a few buttons that seems like they could have been streamlined a little bit further. Despite that, the game gets a good playability rating as well as a good readability rating. Spacelines from the Far Out. This is a neat custom overlay with just what you need. However, it is arranged in a somewhat strange order, and the button prompts mean you need to know where on a normal controller the buttons are, as it doesn't match and doesn't say A, but instead says where on the controller that button usually is. The game gets a good playability rating and an okay playability rating. Research and Destroy. This is actually a mix of direct touch, custom overlay, and gyro controlling. Imagine that! The various buttons fade in and out as needed. It's a very cool implementation in general. I would still prefer this style of gameplay with a mouse and keyboard, however. The game receives a good playability rating and an okay readability rating. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. This game uses a custom overlay with just what you need and nothing else. Doesn't have all the extra buttons you never use like many others. It's decently playable. The game receives an okay playability rating as well as an okay readability rating. Lost in Random. This game uses a custom overlay with styling to match the game, which looks great. There's a lot of various buttons and clearly some thought put into it, like the sprint button being a toggle, for example. It is definitely playable, but might not be optimal. The game has received a okay playability rating as well as an okay readability rating. Life is Strange True Colors. This game uses a standard overlay with a few edits, including bigger buttons, which is very much needed, and the game starts out by giving you accessibility options that you might want to turn on, like increased font size. While it does play well on the phone, I think this is a game you'd rather enjoy with TV. Despite that, it is still recommended, the playability rating is good, and the readability rating is okay. Octopath Traveller. The overlay might look very close to the basic overlay that comes with xCloud, but is slightly reduced. Although the game is very much playable on your mobile, the standard overlay leaves much to be desired and readability kind of varies. So with that in mind, it is still recommended, however the playability rating and the readability rating is only at an okay level. The Nonary Games. This is point-and-click adventure escape room kind of thing, with direct touch, which is great, but unfortunately the tutorial assumes a controller, but that's minor. The custom font and the font size plays very well on mobile. Great job. This game has received a good rating in both playability and readability. Changing Tides. The custom styled overlay with a stick and 4 custom buttons that describe the purpose is really good. The game is really gorgeous, so I would definitely play it on a bigger screen if I could, but on a phone it's definitely playable. The game receives an OK readability rating, however, it has a good playability rating. Edge of Eternity. This is full custom overlay. Accessibility options mean you can increase subtitle size to a readable level. The rest of the game is very hard to read. But if you know the game well, then it's really good. The playability rating is good, the readability rating is actually bad, but the game is still recommended on your phone. Last Kids on Earth and the Staff of Doom. This game uses a slightly changed standard overlay with toggles for the buttons that need it, and surprisingly enough, it works really well. The game has a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. Telling Lies. This game uses a standard overlay, but uses proper text input when needed. This is a Sam Barlow game, so that all works really well, as it isn't very control heavy at all. The game only receives an OK rating in both playability and readability, but it is still recommended to play on your phone. Dreamscaper. It has a custom overlay that is quite playable, however the amount of buttons and button combinations make it a bit hard to get used to, so it definitely could have been streamlined more. The playability rating is only at an OK, but the readability is at good. Death's Door. A well-designed custom overlay that makes the game very playable, but the text could have been more readable. The game receives a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. The Pedestrian. The custom overlay works pretty well, and the platforming parts work okay. The puzzling is a bit clunky, but it would be the same on a controller. I would have preferred direct touch approach for the puzzles, but you can have it all. The game has received OK in both playability and readability. Gears 5. The custom overlay here has a lot to press. The game uses different controls for menus and gameplay. The customizable font size makes the game readable on a small screen, but even on the biggest font, the subtitles are on the small side. The great thing is, gyro aiming is enabled, and I couldn't find a way to turn it off, but why would you want to? So despite the many buttons and the aiming in general on a controller, gyro aiming brings it up to a recommended level. The game has a playability rating of OK, as well as an readability rating of OK. Dragon Quest XI. This game uses a custom overlay using standard icons. The game is actually playable in both an old school 2D classic mode and a 3D mode. The readability is quite decent. The 2D mode is very playable on mobile, although the buttons are a bit too small to be able to hit comfortably. They're also slightly too close to each other. But that can be customized to a certain extent. Whereas the 3D mode seems to have a few buttons more than necessary, and that clutter gets in the way a bit, but it's still very much playable. The game has a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. Overcooked 2. This game uses a custom overlay with clear usages for each button icon. It's very much playable, but you will struggle at later levels or higher scores. Text is bold and readable for the most part. The game has a good playability rating as well as a good readability rating. Monster Sanctuary. This game uses a custom overlay with custom buttons. The decently sized D-pad as well as spaced buttons is nice, the text is okay enough to read. The game has an okay readability rating, but a good playability rating. Paw Patrol Mighty Pups Save Adventure Bay. The game uses 5 buttons that look small but have a large clickable area, and 1 movement stick. Perfect to put in front of a 3 to 4 year old who loves to show toys or merch in front of it, while the rest of the party is finishing eating their meals or similar at the restaurant, for example. Great implementation in general. The game has a good rating in both playability and readability. Transformers Battlegrounds. This game uses a custom overlay, but the buttons are a bit on the small side. The gameplay fits well for mobile, but the control method is decent at best. Text is on the bad side of OK in terms of readability, but still manages to pass, just about. The game has only an OK rating in both playability and readability. Among Us. This game uses direct touch, but honestly, just run it natively on your phone. But despite that, the game still has a good rating in both playability and readability. One Piece Pirate Warrior 4. The custom overlay here has a bit too many buttons, but the early game is definitely playable. Slightly small text, but this Dynasty Warriors clone plays decently well on touch. The game has an OK playability rating and a bad readability rating, but is still somehow recommended. Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator. This game uses a custom overlay with simplified controls to use just what you need. Apart from some visibility options from the D-pad needing lower opacity, it's generally good. This game though would very much have benefited from a direct touch approach. The playability rating is good, while the readability rating is okay. Archvale. This custom overlay works decently. Readability is generally fine with a few hard-to-read elements. The twin-stick shooter style of the game doesn't require a controller, but would greatly benefit from one. As such, the game is recommended while still only having an OK rating in both playability and readability. Townscaper. Oh yeah! This game uses a perfect direct touch implementation, and it's just a great chill game to play on your phone. Exo One. The slimmed down custom overlay here is only using the buttons you actually need. They aren't perfectly placed, but some customization is always possible, and some feel like they could have been made redundant with slight changes to the gameplay. Readability is decent, but it could have been improved. The game receives an OK rating in both playability and readability, but is still recommended. Fae Tactics. Basic custom overlay right here, which works but screams for direct touch, and readability varies a lot. That being said, it's still very much playable. It receives an OK rating in both playability and readability. Dicey Dungeons. It's a basic custom overlay here that just has what it needs, it seems. I'm not a fan of D-pads on touch, however, it is way too easy to click the wrong input. It's decently readable, and the game has received an OK rating in both playability and readability. Football Manager 23. The direct touch here feels a lot more responsive this year around than with the previous year's iteration. It's a big improvement, and the option for bigger UI is very welcome, but even with it on a phone, it's rather small. It would probably work great on a tablet. Even if there was an even bigger UI setting, a different font would also have been preferred. Also, I don't think this should be an option, but rather automatically done based on the screen type. That being said, since the game uses direct touch, I do want to highlight that's always a good thing. It achieves a playability rating of good, but the readability rating stands at an OK at best. Aragami 2. This is a custom overlay that I didn't think much of at first, but it quickly grew on me. Is it as good as a controller? Probably not, but it is surprisingly playable. The game has received a playability rating of good, as well as a readability rating of good. Psychonauts 2. This is a gorgeous custom overlay, and for the most part it's a very well thought out control scheme. Well done, Double Fine. Very readable text and options to make it even better. Great job. The game receives a good playability rating and a great readability rating. Golf with Friends. The custom overlay here has a bit of a flaky camera stick, but luckily they've added extra buttons for extra precision and it's very much playable. The game has received good playability ratings and readability ratings. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. The custom overlay at play here is very similar to that of Dirt 5. Its slightly more arcadey driving of Need for Speed suits itself better for touch input, however. The game is a good playability rating and a OK readability rating. Psychonauts 1. While not as good in the implementation as the sequel, it is still very much playable. The game receives a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. Need for Speed Heat. The custom overlay here works really well. Gyro steering as an option and a HUD adapter for mobile would have been nice, but it is in the nice to have territory. The game has received a good playability rating and a readability rating of OK. Peggle 2. A custom overlay with one stick for general movement and another one for precision. I would have preferred direct touch, but it works. It's a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. Tell Me Why, chapters 1 to 3. The custom overlay at play here works well enough, quite like how Life is Strange did it. Fonts could have been better adapted for mobile, but it works. The game has a good playability rating and an OK readability rating. New Super Lucky's Tale. This is a nicely done custom overlay with everything just where it needs to be. Plays really well, and it's really a good game for the kids. The playability rating and the readability rating is both good. Superliminal. A slim custom overlay that displays just what you need, and it does it well. First-person games are rarely better than OK with touch though, and while it is on the high end of OK, it's not to the point of being good. OK and a half. The game has received OK ratings in both playability and readability. Slay the Spire. A slim-to-touch overlay that gets the job well done, but the native mobile experience is way better, so just buy that. Playability rating is good, readability rating is okay. Playable 2. A custom overlay that gets the job done. Not the best way to play, but it's not something to avoid, and the text is rather readable. The playability rating is okay, and the readability is good. The Bard's Tale Remaster. A slight variation of the standard overlay, but it works pretty great. The UI and text could have been clearer, but considering the age of the game, it can easily be forgiven. Playability rating is good, whereas the readability rating only managed to score an OK. Banjo-Kazooie. There is readable, and then there is Banjo-Kazooie. The massive cartoony letters is great. It feels a bit slow, however, and that's most likely down to the game being old and not the controls. As such, the playability rating lands at a good, whereas the readability rating is great. Banjo-Tooie. Just like with Kazooie, Tooie is readable and playable, but feeling a bit unresponsive due to its age rather than controls. The playability rating is good, and the readability rating is great here as well. The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. The Walking Dead Mission. The Walking Dead Season 1. The Walking Dead Season 2. This game uses a custom overlay. It should have been direct touch. While decent enough, some of these games did get a mobile release, and I'd play them over this any day. That said, it does work pretty well. Text tends to be on the small side for a phone though, so do grab a tablet. The playability rating is good, the readability rating is okay. Fortnite. Fortnite on your phone using GeForce Now uses a hybrid between direct touch and custom overlays. It's basically a copy of the local mobile experience, meaning the usual touch overlays from the mobile version. Text can sometimes be a little small, but it's generally good. Playability rating is good, and the readability rating is okay. Genshin Impact. Playing Genshin Impact using GeForce Now on your phone, you basically have the same experience as playing on your local device, except for some possible black bars depending on your screen size. The game uses direct touch and custom overlays in a hybrid solution and works really well, and the fact that you can save plenty of gigabytes of storage is a welcome addition. The playability rating is great, and the readability rating is good. Slay the Spire. Compared to the same game on xCloud, using GeForce Now, the mobile experience of Slay the Spire uses direct touch. And it's very close to the mobile version, but the text size isn't really scaling as it does on the local app. If you already have the game on Steam, this is a great way to keep playing on the go, but for newcomers, just get it on mobile. The playability rating is good, whereas the readability is okay. Into the Breach. While some elements are on the small side, the font makes text readable despite being too small. It's not a full direct touch, but more of a touch-to-mouse emulation, which is a little sad to see, but it still plays pretty well. The game has a good rating in both playability and readability. Talisman Digital Editions. Note that this game is only playable using direct touch on a tablet using GeForce Now. This is a direct touch implementation that I think worked okay, even though some elements were a bit hard to hit successfully. It didn't help, obviously, that my only available tablet is a low-end 7-incher that's over 5 years old, but hey, it is what it is. Hello, Future Dad here from the editing room. Throughout the making of this video, there was a bunch of games added to Game Pass with touch support. There was also some games that left the service while I made it. As such, you will find that some of the games that I list in this video is actually not on Game Pass anymore. But that's fine, it's just the way it is. In the document linked below, you can find the latest comments and latest games added to the list. I do my very best to try to mark games as unavailable, but I'm sure I'll miss someone. If I do, then please just add a comment to it and I'll make sure it gets corrected. More about the document later on, but yeah. This video is as is, because it's a video. The document, I'll try to maintain. And now let's go over the list of games that was recently added and did make the list, although after recording everything else. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This uses a stunning custom overlay, but readability, well, it's decent at best. Plays pretty okay or so for a quick test or getting between places for sure. And I would say it works as a complement to playing with a controller, but it's not necessarily a replacement. The game uses a custom overlay and has received an okay rating in both playability and readability. Assassin's Creed Origins. Another stunning custom overlay with the same problems. Just as with Odyssey, the game is decently playable and it reads fine, but it's not a full replacement. It is, however, something you can play on your phone if you really want to and set your mind to it. Or just for those in-between sessions. The game has received an OK playability rating and an OK readability rating. Ghost Song. A nice looking custom overlay with standard buttons with a unique look. It plays fine, but later levels will most likely pose some extra challenge upon touch. The text is on the small side, but it's still readable. The game has received a good rating in playability, while only an OK rating in readability. Opus Echo of Starsong. It's a minimalistic version of a modified standard overlay, and it plays well. The text is small, but still readable. The game has received a good rating in both readability and playability, and uses a standard overlay with modifications. Pentiment. The nice overlay feels like it has a few buttons too many. Text is okay to read, and there are font options if that helps. The game has a good playability rating and an okay readability rating, and uses a custom overlay. DC League of Super Pets: The Adventures of Crypto and Ace. A good looking custom overlay, and the game plays pretty well and text is clear enough. However, the crosshair for aiming, which is very central to the gameplay, is a bit hard to see on mobile, bringing down the score a bit. The game uses a custom overlay and receives an OK rating in playability, but a good rating in readability. Hyuga, Melodies of Steel. Turn-based JRPG-style combats always work decently well on mobile. Story text was easy to read, but some UI elements are on the small side. Some D-pad navigation in the menus that work less than good, but all in all it's quite enjoyable. The game receives a good playability rating and an OK readability rating with a custom overlay. Vampire Survivors. This is a custom overlay with a movement stick and a confirm button, with a cancel button that's gotten away at the top. Text is very much on the small side, but the gameplay works flawlessly. Maybe the developers can add some extra custom icons for some flair for future bonus points. The game receives a great playability rating and an OK readability rating. The game uses a custom overlay. Those were all of the recommended games from my testing. As you can see, there's plenty of great games in here, and over time, more is bound to be added. I will try to keep the list up to date as well as I can, and obviously if you try it yourself, please go into the document and add comments. The more people we are helping out, the better the results. Hopefully this resource is of use not only to you, the viewers and gamers, but also developers as well, to see what works and what doesn't. I for one welcome the addition of touch support added to our games, because it adds a lot to the accessibility. Because let's be honest, sometimes you can't sit down by a computer or a console or TV, and you just want to play something quickly on your phone. While there are some great mobile games out there, sometimes you just want to keep playing what you already did. If you do want to take a full deep dive into the data, the spreadsheet is linked in the description. Thank you for watching. See you next time.